This week, there's no question, but overall, two big things stuck out to me. First of all, this week was an extraordinary reminder of just how much legal trouble the former president is in. I mean, it really is something to have everyone on edge, all eyes glued on the courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching what Jack Smith is going to do, waiting for an indictment in the investigation into his attempt to overturn the 2020 election, only to have a new separate superseding indictment drop in the investigation into his mishandling of classified documents, all happening within the span of hours. You really can't make this stuff up sometimes. And to put a dollar figure on this mountain of legal trouble, just last night, the Washington Post came out with a new piece detailing the more than $40 million Trump's political group has spent on legal costs to defend not just Trump, but his advisors and others in the first half of this year alone. The first half of this year alone. That's $40 million from Trump supporters across the country, footing legal bills for him and his circle. So just to put a very fine-tooth comb on this, $40 million of the $5, $10, and $20 donations from Trump supporters across the country has gone to foot Trump's legal bills and the legal bills of people who helped him. One thing's for sure. Those bills are going to keep piling up. The new superseding indictment in the documents case contains 3 additional charges for Trump, 1 additional defendant, and a ton of additional details. 2 of the charges here center on obstruction, which we can see in a particularly jarring passage that says Trump, his aide Walt Nauta, and the newly indicted Carlos de Oliveira requested that another Trump employee, quote, delete security camera footage at the Mar-a-Lago club to prevent the footage from being provided to a federal grand jury. You can't spell it out much more clearly than that. And why? According to this brand new defendant, Carlos de Oliveira, who is set to be arraigned tomorrow, is because, quote, the boss wanted the server deleted. That is right here on page 29 in the indictment. I think we all know who the boss is. That's pretty clear. And giving orders to delete security footage is a totally innocent, not at all criminal thing to do, right? It sounds totally fine. The other new charge here centers on what is called willful retention of national defense information, which basically means he held on to documents that he wasn't supposed to have, and in the case of that now infamous Iran document, showed them to people he wasn't supposed to show them to. Now, I know all of this can be a lot to follow. An indictment in the election interference case still feels imminent. Trump's lawyers had a meeting with the special counsel's office this week in which they were told to expect one. And then out of nowhere comes this superseding indictment in Florida. Oh, well, nowhere to all of us. Which brings me to the other lesson of the week. Even when it might not feel like it, or we can't necessarily see it, or we don't know the details or what's happening, the justice system is always working. Every time Jack Smith's team makes an announcement, there seems to be a few eye-popping details that no one was tracking beforehand. Some of them sound very mob-like to me. There's also a lot going on behind the scenes. As this week showed, we have no idea how much work the Department of Justice is doing until news breaks. But in the meantime, the work is still very much happening. So however slowly it might seem sometimes, and there are many times it feels slow, the wheels of justice are constantly turning to hold people accountable.